What's going on, guys? My name is Logan with West Desert Wheeler. Welcome back to my tire test series. This is going to essentially be a Class 2 tire test in a bracket formula. So these are going to be head-to-head comparisons out there on the rocks. The tire that wins this comparison moves on to the second round, and we are going through round number 1 of 10 different tires. Now, I kind of arranged these tires and selected them by choosing kind of the major brands available. So we have offerings from many different companies. So we're gonna have tires from Proline, we're gonna have tires from J Concepts. Today we've got some Jetco tires, which is a smaller brand you may not have heard of, and it's Jetco / Power Hobby. We also have a exclusive Power Hobby tire in the mix as well, and an exclusive Jetco. So they kind of both get in there a little bit a couple times. We have RC 4-wheel drive, and Pitbull RC, lots of awesome companies, lots of awesome options on the tire market. In today's test, we will be testing these on the Logandale Trails rocks. It's an epic mountain range of red rock out there in Logandale, Nevada. It's fantastic for RC crawling. It's super fun to go out and explore, and it also offers very unique rock formations, which we're going to use to our advantage to find out which one is superior on our Rock Pirates RC truck. It is a carbon Kraken chassis with a deluxe Nod 2 transmission, a Hobbywing Fusion motor, Vanquish axles, and this test will be supported by Vanquish Products, as they have helped supply us with some awesome 1.9 wheels because they are easier to change. And in this series, I'm going to be changing wheels and tires a lot. So thank you very much to Vanquish for their support. Speaking of support, in the tires themselves, we have SL3D RC squid inserts, which are 3D printed tire inserts. Because all these tires vary just that little bit, it's actually quite difficult to find a foam that will give you the same performance in the slightly varying sizes. So SL3D stepped up as a sponsor for this series and is sending over inserts for each individual tire. In today's test, they are actually both running the same size 109mm insert from SL3D RC, and that is what they consider their standard 4.75 tire insert. So the Proline Trencher in the Predator compound, as well as our Jetco Power Hobby Grabber tires in the Ultra Soft compound. Let's talk about the specs on the tires real quick. The Proline tire itself is 4.75 on the sidewall and 1.81 wide, according to Proline. The Power Hobby tire ends up being 4.72 inches if you convert their millimeters listed on their website to inches, and then I believe it is 1.57 inches wide according to Power Hobby. And when you do compare these tires, the Power Hobby is just that little noticeable amount shorter and definitely a narrower tire, as it is a less aggressive tread pattern on the Power Hobby as well. Kind of visually, it looks like a smaller, skinnier tire too. Out of all the tire testing, this is actually one that I was really looking forward to. I think this is going to be a great matchup, and I think both of these tires offer very similar characteristics in the tire itself, so that's why I stacked these up in our round 1 to see which one comes out on top. Now, if you compared either one of these to a much different tire, something with a lot of lug, you could get a really interesting comparison doing that as well, and depending on who comes out on top and where they line up in the second round of the bracket, we're going to see a really fun comparison there as well, as nothing else is quite as pin tire-ish as these two. So the Proline Trencher is kind of skirting the line of a pin tire, kind of like sneaking by, not really being a pin tire, but it's totally unlicensed and a unique design, no doubt. Whereas the Jetco follows the standard pin style formula and has little individual pins. I run those on a 2.2 inch wheel on my competition cars, and I'm talking about my deluxe MOA car, where pin tires are super common in that world. Not as common in the Class 2 size vehicles, but we are seeing some offerings from Endura now, as well as Jetco. Maybe down the road we'll have to get a set of the Enduras and compare them as well. They did not make this first round of 10 tires. Maybe in the future we will do that. Drop a comment down below if you want to see them head to head. Now, being able to have such an awesome variety of tires was made possible by our friends over at Sky RC Hobby Shop in St. George, Utah. Thank you very much, Cody, for the support here on the channel and helping us out getting some awesome tires to put head to head. Now, I tested these tires in Logandale on the exact same day that I went out and tested the Tusk as well as the Geolander. So if you wanted, you could go back and look at that video and compare the obstacles we're on to the ones in this video. In this video, I'm going to edit it just slightly different and show 2 additional obstacles that I think there actually showed a comparative difference here, whereas with the Tusk and Geolander, I ended up not getting the lines quite how I wanted with one tire versus the other. Thought it didn't quite look fair on camera, so I decided to pull that out of the video. But in this video, they will be there. So there's a little more footage here to compare against, and we're gonna need it because these are actually a pretty fair fight, and it's gonna be a fun one to compare. But as far as running them on the same day and the same obstacles, you can get a better idea of how each one performs against all 4 tires. Unfortunately, I only compared those 4 tires against each other in this Logandale trip, so this is the end of the Logandale footage. This was one day that I went out. I was able to do 2 different tire tests with 4 different tires. It's hard to pull yourself off the rocks and work on wheels and tires, but we made it happen for you guys, so I hope you enjoy the content. Okay guys, we pretty well covered the details on the tires as well as the truck setup and what we've got going on. It's time to take a look at this footage and see how these tires stack up head to head and find out which one comes out on top here in the West Desert Wheeler tire comparison. Here we are, starting off on a big vertical wall. This should be a fun challenge. The other tires that I tested on this wall could not slow crawl the beginning. I was very impressed by the trenchers pulling up that first ledge right there. So now we've got our rears up. We had our rears up. Let's try this one more time. Just a tiny touch of momentum there. A little bit of hopping, no big deal. It is very steep. And then we're gonna work our way just a little bit left to try and grab some traction off that ledge on the left side. I do have a chalk line over there as a reference mark of, I tried to stay to the right of the chalk line if at all possible. And we do end up staying right of that chalk line. So a little bit of tire spinning there, a little bit of hopping, and just, it's making a little bit of progress. We end up following that little bit of a crack with that front right tire off to the right, and it pulls up and out the top pretty quickly, I might say. The other tires I had tested, one of them spent quite a long time, and the other one just took a bit of work as well, whereas these trenchers are really making short work of this. So I really wanted to prove that these could slow crawl up this bottom ledge again, just hunting for that right spot. Pops right up, a little more throttle on this climb. On this climb, I'm not necessarily worried about trying to slow crawl it, just want to make sure that it'll go up this wall again easily. That front right tire follows that right crack just exactly the same as it did the first time. So can the grabber slow crawl this bottom line? Let's find out. A little bit of spinning and they pull on up and up they go. We're sitting here just about an inch off the ground, hunting for traction yet again. A little less hopping on these, but we find some traction off on that front left tire. Trying to get these to go up a little bit. Just trying to slow crawl it, let these tires do their job, end up falling back down just like the trenchers did. Take a quick reset. Again, just a little bit of momentum, really went a long ways on that. I just kind of stayed in the throttle nice and steady. These cruise up, and instead of following that crack all the way right, it drives straight over those cracks. So right there is kind of where I see the biggest difference on this climb. Also, it used a little bit less throttle and it had less tire spinning on its way up. It just needed that little touch of momentum coming up this rock face right here. Again, I really try and slow crawl it. It will pull up off the bottom there, and we'll find out that it has a very similar experience as the first time we did that. But we find just that little bit of traction off to the left. We're gonna work our front end back and forth, and then these things just hook up and drive up this rock face. It's quite impressive. So on this climb in particular, I am gonna go ahead and give it to the grabber. The way it climbed over that crack both times and the way that it pulled it up off the ground, it just seemed like the grabber wanted it more than the trencher. Now this obstacle is an interesting one because it really changes the outcome of this test here. So the chalk lines, we want to stay below the top line and above the bottom line. We want to go right down the middle of it. And then it ends up in this nasty hump on the right side that we always end up getting a bit of torque twist going up and over. And then there's a low spot on that bottom right tire. So there's a little bit of a ledge on the passenger side of the truck, just in front and to the right of that back right tire right there. If I were to go straight up, there's a small ledge right there. And so we're gonna see a difference in the tires based on that. Right here, the trencher starts to go up the ledge, and as the front right touches, it slips off and the truck rolls to the bottom. So those trenchers just let go right there, unfortunately. But kind of the point of this test is to see if we can get a controlled grip and slip motion. We want to be able to break traction and get the truck to slide around when we want, yet not lose too much ground and have control over how vertical we're going up the wall. The trenchers do a pretty good job of that, where I never felt like they were going to fall down the wall, but I was able to get some good enough tire spin to not have to fight it too much. So let's take a look at how the grabbers do. Pins making short work of that entrance, cruising up, driving over here, and we've entered the chalk lines. So now we're having to use a lot of steering and a little bit of throttle blipping to get these to kind of snap. And the main problem with this type of obstacle is typically the rear tires. Because the fronts are overdriven, it's hard to get those rears to kind of slip a little bit. So your front end can kind of be pointed where you want, but you need to be able to get those rears, particularly the bottom right rear, to let go and slide along. So the point of this test is to see if we can get them to grip and slip, whereas the grabbers are doing a little less slipping and just mostly gripping. So we ended up on our wheel face there, outside the boundary, so I go ahead and give the truck a reset. Drive back up into the course. See, this thing it wants to go straight up that hill. There's a decent amount of slipping on there. Now we're getting into the torque twist. We're getting a little too vertical. So small reverses like that settle the suspension right down. I do have the Vanquish Products brass rings in the front wheels only. So a little bit of additional front weight, as well as SSD VS410 knuckle weights for VS410 axles. So exact same thing happened right there with the grabber as that happened with the trencher. It started to climb that little ledge and then it slipped off. But again, those grabbers just going to the moon. They just want to climb these rocks. They don't want to slip. They want to go straight up. And to reiterate, what I'm looking for in this is being able to control going from the slip and going back to the traction. And these don't want to slip. They just want to go for traction. Bottom right drops off on that one, and we're lucky that it didn't roll. They did end up hanging on right there. So the grabber got it done. It did slip off that ledge. But overall, for what I intended this obstacle to be, I wanted to see the slip in the tire while maintaining a solid position on the wall. I'm going to give that one to the trencher. I never felt like I was in danger of falling too far downhill. Now this one's real simple. We've got the chalk line on the side hill, and we've got this little bump that we're going to turn into, drive the front end up around it, and then turn out the top. The whole point of this is to keep your front tire below that chalk line. So then the question becomes, well, how far can we get it to go below the chalk line? So we've got our differential below the chalk line right there, and our rear end slips out on us. Okay, that's a little too aggressive. Let's put the differential over the chalk line and see if that's a better option. So we're going to turn into it. The front end pushes just a little, then it settles, and we turn out of it, and the truck gets a little unsettled, but it sticks to that wall and it pulls its way up and out. So now let's take a look at the grabber driving through here. We're going to start off with a very similar line as the trencher's first approach. As we get close to this crack, we're going to stay pretty close to the chalk line, then turn into it. Truck settles, stays super planted the whole time, very predictable, and the grabber just drives on through. So let's take a reset. Let's get the differential down over the chalk line. And we're using a little more forward steering to try and keep that truck planted. Lifted the front tire, but it did settle out. And then at the last second, we're going to turn right, and those rears just slip off. It didn't get the plant and grip and drive up the top like the trencher did, but honestly a very similar result. But the trencher held on. So it's hard to say, you know, maybe the grabbers could have done it if I would have controlled my throttle differently, but I'm going to give that one to the trencher as well. On this one right here, we've got the side hill, and our goal is to get our tire as close or even on top of that chalk line as possible. The lower you get your front end, the better you're doing across that side hill. Now pay attention to which tires are slipping here in the rear. The outer left tire was the one doing the spinning, and it pivoted on that back right tire, which maintained traction the whole time. This is really just a little bonus line. It doesn't show all that much other than these tires like to drive up and over rocks. Up at the top, I get on a bad line with the trenchers. I try and take a reverse and try and get reset. End up getting that tire caught in a little bit of a bind and it snaps my truck out. No big deal. That's not really part of any particular test. So the grabber, we got to get on top of the chalk line to match what the trencher did. So we're going to go and try and stay just on top of it. Right here it gets real tough. Ooh, man, it barely held on. The grabber did do a good job, but it looked just a little less in control than with the trencher. So at this point, the grabber is going to go ahead and turn uphill. This time the right rear is spinning and the left rear is the one putting down the traction. So interesting, it actually ended up being a tighter turning radius because of that. So pretty interesting just to note. I was paying attention to that when editing this video. And then here with the grabber, we're gonna get on a better line, end up on our belly just a little bit, give it some juice, and out the top it goes. But not really counting that against the trencher there. Okay, this one's interesting. Our main goal to start with is to try and just scrub our sidewalls along this little crack and use the least amount of the ledge possible. As it gets on top here, and I try and turn left to get up that, it pushes along the edge. It doesn't grab and go up. So now we get a little more tire up top, and now that front end and the rear end slides down underneath it. The front end couldn't quite pull left, and the back of the truck ends up touching just those small formations in the rock, and it just spins and it actually slides downhill to where we end up on our diff. So just not quite getting the traction where we're looking for on this one. That chalk line to the right, I'm trying to stay to the left of that chalk line. Again, on our diff, a little bit of tire spinning there. Once we're diffed out, we're really not going anywhere. We're gonna take another reset. So we're gonna put our tires on that ledge and see if we can get the pivot left with the front end and get up and out of this little pocket. There we go, our front end actually stuck this time. Now as our rear tire comes through that hole, it upsets the truck. The rear tires lose their traction and start sliding downhill. So I try to correct it by bringing the front end back left. Now the left rear is off the wall and the right rear is up. But I can't quite get that left rear to climb up. We're gonna go over to the smaller ledge down here, use just a little bit of throttle, and then the whole truck unsettles and comes off that wall. So now we've taken a couple bumps to get this thing to get up and stick on this rock face. This is a very off-camber, very hard line. I set this obstacle with my VRD carbon kit. It had BFG crawlers on it, and I was unable to get up and past this. So trying to get these trenchers to show us what they've got. Unfortunately, just seeing a lot of tire slipping. I'm trying to use the inside sidewall to our advantage to try and pull that truck up. You can see the back end has slid just a little bit down and to the right. Finally find some traction with a little bit of throttle, but we end up diffed out, and I'm getting on the throttle, lots of throttle, going full throttle, but ultimately never quite able to get the truck to kind of stick and pull its way up. It started to go for a second, and the front end let go and slid off to the right. Let's see what the grabbers have got. Again, gonna start this off trying to stay on the inside of that ledge, using as little as possible of the ledge. See if we can drive in and turn left, up and out. It's trying really hard. Those sidewalls grabbed on right there. I'm gonna turn left, and the truck's just gonna push off. So unfortunately went over that chalk line. Gonna go ahead and take my reset and get a little bigger bite on that ledge on the right side. So here we are, both tires up on the right side. Gonna go up here and turn left, and the front end's gonna stick. Can the rears come up? They do. So right there, we're seeing yet again on a smooth rock face that the grabbers have a better go straight uphill effect, basically. So now, can we get through this? Can we get as far as the trenchers did? Using the inside sidewall of the rear tire, we're able to get up and through there. Very impressive. This is the first time I had gotten up and through there, and so for bonus points, I'm just going to go ahead and drive to the top of the mountain. So the grabber being the first tire to go over that obstacle out of any of the tires that I had tested it on, including the BFG on my VRD carbon kit. So let's see if we can do it again. Here we go, drive up, get a good bite on that ledge. Fronts are up, turn left. Can the rears come back through? Not quite. The back left slips off, but then the back left is able to climb back up right there without using any bumps or throttles, and it didn't upset the entire truck. So these grabbers are holding better on steep, flat surfaces. Let's see if we can repeat our impossible climb here. Just able to position that truck, that front left tire way up in the air. Now we're fully diffed out like the trencher was. So let's see if we can use some throttle to our advantage and get this truck to go. So you have to hunt for traction by moving the front end around to potentially get the inside sidewall of the rear to grab. And we did that with the trencher, but the front end let go, and the grabber was able to maintain its traction in the front and pull it up and over that obstacle, although we ended up coming off of it the second time. But the grabbers got farther than the trenchers did both times. So definitely a grabber win on that one. This is a pretty fun one. It's a side hill transition. You're gonna wrap around a point on this rock. We end up diffed out. I really tried to not get my axle diffed out, but it happened with every tire I tried it on. So apparently that's just how it goes. Now there's a dark spot on the rock to the left of my front tire right there. My goal is to drive over that dark spot on that rock. Now the front end just unable to stick it there with the trenchers, but we did get up and out of the top. Let's take another shot at it and see what we can make happen. Again, I'm trying to get these rear tires to stick and push me up and over this little nub on the back left tire here. Unfortunately, the trencher is just going to do the exact same thing as it did before. It's okay because it pulls itself out of it, and that was just fine, but not quite able to get those rears to hold me up and above that point. So yet again, we're going to take another shot trying to get my front driver tire to go over that dark spot on the rock. As I'm turning left here, the fronts aren't listening, the rears are in control, and it shoves the truck over to the right, and it's just unable to stick and pull it up there. So let's see how the grabbers do on this transition. Coming up and over. Can the rears push me up and over that knob? That's a big question. I had it set up well, but those rears just let go because we were trying to climb a big ledge up to the right. Having our truck articulated this direction puts more pressure on that back left tire. It's less likely to climb things. It will want to slide along more. We're diffed out again, hunting for traction with our front tires here. It works out. We're able to slide off of that and get ourselves on this rock face. Using a little bit of throttle to try and get my truck a little more pushing vertically rather than across the side hill. How close can we get to this dark spot on the rock? Look at these tires. They want to go that way. Up and out, they were closer to that spot than the trencher was. So right there, I'm going to give the nod to the grabber. Can we do it again? So let's get in here. Exact same entrance, exact same result. Going to come through here, get diffed out. Using a little bit of throttle, almost worked, but no big deal. Again, we figured out that we can just slide that axle across there. Now we're going to come up on that steep face, aim for that dark spot on the rock. Our rear end's actually going to settle down just a little bit. Okay, I'm going right for it. Come on. There it is. The tire is on the spot, and as it just gets over the top, it slides off to the right a touch. But I've got to give it to the grabber on that one. It was able to hit the mark that I was looking for. Now check this out. This is the sidewall test going through a V-crack. As I'm coming up through the crack, I'm turning right really hard and putting the back of the sidewall under pressure to manipulate the rear end into position in the bottom of that crack. The trencher did a fantastic job. It's hard to get all that explained before it's up the crack, so it did a great job here. Coming up through this again, we're using that front left sidewall and different pressures of steering to try and get this truck to get the rears in the correct pinch to push the truck up and over. So there we are, able to control where the rear is going on the truck by using that steering. So thanks to SL3DRC, for those tires not wanting to roll under side hills, you can also use that to your advantage to put a lot of pressure somewhere on the back edge of the tire and manipulate the rear end of the truck. So that's really cool. So shout out SL3D Squid Inserts. So let's take a look at the grabber, and right here, what we're going to see is that its smoother sidewall just doesn't have the bite to hold that front tire in, and the rear tires take control. Now, at this point in the day, these are the last tires I've tested. I've ran this line, I don't know, 15 times at this point. I know the marks that I'm looking to go for, and I know what I'm trying to accomplish with this. As we just saw with the trencher, they did a great job. We got through there pretty quick. That back left tire is just going to find its way up the ledge. The front left tire is just going to hold on enough to get them into that pinch, and up and out she goes. But like the other obstacles, we got to back it up. We got to see if we can do it again. And I'm really glad that I'm running these obstacles multiple times. It gives us multiple opportunities to see shortcomings, or maybe, you know, an odd result, we could call it. If it magically went up something and we can't reproduce it, maybe we just got lucky. So let's see if we got lucky on that climb with this last one. So really trying to use the steering to manipulate that rear end. Now right here, our front's in a good position. It's not letting go, but our rears don't have the bite to push the truck up the V-crack. And if I climb the rear more aggressively, it pulls that left front out and it tries to roll the truck, which effectively pulls our right tires off the side of the crack, and we've lost it at that point. So I'm gonna take a bunch of reverses here, just trying to do small adjustments to get this thing in position that I want. So again, I'm turning hard right with my reef servo. This truck has a 888 servo in there, direct power. It's very strong, and just unable to get the truck into position that I want, or at least when I had it in the position that I wanted, the rears weren't grabbing enough to push it up and through this V-crack. But I know that I can do it with these tires. So what happened? Again, that front left just slowly slides out and lets go. It won't hold that front left in, and our back tires aren't getting the traction to push it up and over the ledge while letting that front left stay in the pocket. So basically at this point, we know who the winner is on this one. It's the trencher for this obstacle. The trencher with its more aggressive sidewall really shows and shines through on this. And the grabber with its smooth sidewalls, which is kind of traditional for a pin tire. I don't think that it's a bad design as far as pin tires go, but as compared to the trencher, which just has a more meaty sidewall to it, it's just unable to get that grip on the sides of the tires, which this was really a great demonstration of why I put this obstacle in here. And it really showed between these two tires which ones were working better and which ones weren't when it comes to the sidewall. There we go, just able to get that combo, and you have to really nail it with this tire. And we were able to come out the top, but a struggle bus for sure. So here is the trencher, and now we're going to go on a downhill we're trying to land the tire on the inside of the nub right there, and then we're going to maintain our turn and try and drive out the ledge. So the rear end got light, had to just throttle out, and it kind of slipped off the ledge. Showing lots of traction there. Trencher dropping in, trying to get on the inside of this ledge while turning on a steep descent. Not easy. Look at those squid inserts not rolling on the side hill. The truck is planted. It's not going anywhere. We finally made it out this ledge. This is the first tire of the day to make that obstacle super clean like that. So big shout out to the trencher in the Predator compound on that one. Can we back it up? Let's try again. We're going to drop in here. Again, aiming for just the inside of that little rock formation right under the front tire right there. Back end gets a little bit light. I end up having to throttle out. But it was the first tire to clean that obstacle. So very, very good performance from the Predator there. Now the grabber's up. Can it side hill on a downhill? We have it in good position there. The rear end lets go, a little bit of throttle. That was really good. It was very controlled, but it just didn't quite keep itself as composed as the trencher did on this drop. So as these guys come in, one more time, rear end lets go, and it shifts and rolls out. So at this point, my battery on my GoPro had about 1%. We got our one shot to try this one more time. Can we make it stick? No, the grabber does not make it happen. Okay guys, so after carefully watching this footage a couple times and really inspecting specific details on specific obstacles, I came out with a score of 4 obstacles 1 for the trencher and 4 obstacles 1 for the grabber. but I'm going to give this win to the Predator Trencher, which seems a little odd, but it's a more well-rounded tire. The sidewall on it is better. It seems to stick just a little bit better. It seems to do better on side hills particularly. And I think that just out in real world driving, you'll see better performance with the Trencher all around. Another consideration is that the pin tires are not really legal in a lot of competitions. Now, it's hard to say like, go get these pin tires if you can't even use them. But the performance was very, very close with both of these tires. I gotta say, the grabbers are fantastic at flat face rocks going up very steep. They get a lot of traction down and they have a lot of forward drive in them. The Trenchers are also very good at that. They're just not quite on the level of the Jetcos here. But when I went back and watched which obstacles won for the Power Hobby grabbers, it's really just climbing vertical stuff on smooth rocks. It's kind of a one-trick pony, whereas the Trencher would come through and shine on things like the side hill or that drop and turn, or it did very well on a lot of the climbs, just not quite as good as those Jetcos. It still made it up every climb, and it didn't get its ass kicked here. This is a very tight race, and both of these are really good tires. I could definitely see either one of these going very far in this bracket, but at this point, we're gonna knock out the Jetco and give it to the Trencher in the Predator compound. So I need to send thanks to you guys for watching this. Drop your comments down below. Did I get it wrong? What do you think of how these compared? Please sound off in the comments. I greatly appreciate your input. Thanks to our sponsors of this series. Couldn't be done without these guys. I really appreciate it. So thanks to Vanquish Products for these beautiful wheels that they sent an additional set so that we could swap wheels and tires back and forth on 2 sets of wheels. So that really helped out a lot, as well as Sky RC for helping me out with a bunch of tires to go and test. And it came from a hobby shop, not the dealer, so I don't have to hurt anybody's feeling. Sky RC sells them all, so it's great to support him down in St. George, Utah. If you're ever in the area, be sure to stop by Sky RC and thank Cody. Rock Pirates RC is also a sponsor in this series. Thank them very much for their support and helping get my truck repaired last minute. It dropped off a big fall the other day. I damaged it a little bit and they were able to get me my parts just in time to go out to this Logandale trip and get this first series of videos going for you guys. So thanks to Rock Pirates RC. And finally, thanks to all the support in the tires and as well as the series from SL3D RC. Be sure to check them out. Their squid inserts are fantastic. They're a dual stage 3D printed insert. They make them for many ranges of sizes of tires, and he's really fine-tuned them to work awesome. I wouldn't be running them in my trucks if I didn't think they worked well, and guess what? They're in just about every single one of my trucks. So thanks to SL3D, I really appreciate the support. Thank you guys once again. I do appreciate it. My name is Logan with West Desert Wheeler. Be sure to hit the affiliate links down below to help support my channel. Check out westdesertwheeler.com to help me directly. Thank you guys. We will see you in the next one. Keep the rubber side down.